Hi everyone, welcome to the semi-final version of Sewing Bee Unpicked with me, Jane from Haberdasher So we see Serena, Raph, Farie and Rebecca go head to head for a place, or final 3 places in the final next week. So this week their pattern challenge was to make some Oxford bags, some men's baggy trousers. They had to these are a loose fitting trouser with pleats at the waist, a waistband and a hook and bar, a zip fly and turn-ups. So they had to choose a fabric that was going to be suitable for the trousers but also relevant to the era, so sort of 1940s I think. So a lot of them chose like a wool or wool mix suiting. I think Raph may have chosen a cotton drill, but look, he said it looked quite wool-like. Or had quite a wool-like feel to it. They also had to choose a contrast fabric for the pocket lining, so that will be a lighter weight fabric to make it less bulky in the pocket. So some of them chose like a contrasting fabric. So things to look out for were the turn-ups. So they had to make sure that the turn-ups at the bottom were nice and even, so you just measure those, which I think they made a point of saying that Serena did. You can either measure with the tape measure or measure them against each other, as long as they're even. The waistband, getting the 2 edges of the waistband exactly the same depth and making sure that the overlap is just perfect. And then the zip fly as well, which is 3 pieces. There's a guard at the back, then you have the zip, and then you have the flap. Okay, so I was quite surprised when Patrick and Esme were asking the contestants whether they'd made trousers before. I would have thought if you're going to put yourself forward for Sewing Bee, you've made all kinds of garments. I mean, I can't remember how many pairs of trousers I've made, but I'm not saying I'm going to go on Sewing Bee. But yeah, Rebecca said she'd not made a pair of trousers before. I don't know whether she was just kidding or whether that was true. Anyway, let's have a look at what they did, how they did. So Farie, surprise, surprise, she didn't finish. She was sort of questioning herself whether she should do the hem or the waistband, which was more important. Now for me, I think the waistband. But she concentrated on the hem, and then she had to pin her waistband on, which Esme wasn't too impressed with. Rebecca, she chose a lovely sort of deep maroon colour fabric. It all looked pretty well sewn and it fitted the mannequin very well. I thought Esme was a little bit harsh on her and made a big thing of saying that she'd missed the fly guard off the back of the fly zip. So Rebecca, she fixed that, she put it on, and it is the last bit that goes on anyway. She put it on, and then Esme nitpicked over the mannequin and said, oh, you can see the double line of stitching. I mean, you wouldn't have known it was there unless you were really, really looking. And anyway, it's hidden by the flap anyway. And she said you just bunged it on. She didn't bung it on. She did a really good, not a cover-up job, but she did a really good job of getting that fly guard on. Anyway, there we go. I thought they were a little bit harsh on her because of that. Serena, she did a light grey wool suiting. Looked really well sewn. Esme again sort of picking up on over pressing the waistband, but I thought everything just fitted really nicely around the mannequin. And then Raph, whose trousers came first, he was in the kind of a green drill. I don't think his were better than Serena's, and I think his were more on a par with Rebecca's, to be honest. His stitch in the ditch showed on the waistband, so you could see the stitching. I mean, far more obvious than Rebecca's stitching. There was a tuck at the bottom of the zip. He just nicked a bit of the fabric in. He put an extra little tiny little pleat in. He didn't put it in on purpose. It was there by accident, but he hadn't managed to rectify that. And the waistband didn't sit completely flush at the front, so I'm not quite sure why his was better than Serena's, or wasn't any worse than Rebecca's. There we go. That's just my opinion. Right, the transformation challenge. So they had to take a nylon, not a silk, parachute and turn it into a garment for a man or a woman. So I think they all opted to do a dress of some sorts. They were told to use as much of the fabric as they could and to share if they could. So I think a couple of them did and used different bits of other people's parachutes, but Raph and Serena kept to one colour. So Rebecca combined 3 earthy colours, sort of ochre, yellow, khaki green, and a sort of like a dull tangerine colour all together, sort of really autumnal colours together to make a dress that was really cleverly constructed, I thought, because it went from the shoulders into a V, and then there was like a bodice section here with tiny little I want to call them pin tucks, but they're not. They're just like little pinch pleats pulling it together for the detail. And then she constructed a belt in sort of contrast fabric in 2 halves, so that if this side was brown, then you had the orange belt. And I just thought it would look really clever and quite wearable. But Esme didn't like the colour. I thought we were judging on their sewing, not their colour. And they didn't choose the fabric. They were just given these, and they had to make do with what they had. Anyway, Farie, she made a kind of floaty off the shoulder, one shoulder number, pink, purple. Patrick said he didn't particularly like the colours, but that didn't seem to come into the judging. But she just tied it onto the mannequin. There wasn't really any sewing, not that I saw anyway. So I don't see how wearable that was. Raph, he just used a white parachute to make a dress which had like a fan pleats over the front, and then he bunged a massive piece of fabric on the back to make a train. Anyone could do that. Sorry, I'm being really disparaging today. Esme said that the dress looked a bit mumsy on the bosom department. I'm not quite sure what she meant by that, because it was this kind of fan pleating. I thought it looked quite sort of Tudor, sort of Anne Boleyn. I thought it was quite a good effect. I didn't think it looked mumsy. Anyway, his was more tied on and sewn as well. There wasn't a lot of sewing going on there. And then finally, Serena, she did hers all in that sort of sky blue colour, and she gathered and sewed loads and loads of strips to make ruffles onto I presume there was a base dress underneath that she made underneath, and then she tied the straps looped through the loops on the parachute, which was quite clever. So I think hers probably had the most sewing in it, and then Rebecca's, and then Raph and Farie's. So I thought again they were a little bit harsh on Rebecca, but I think Serena's was the most sewn one there, and probably one of the most wearable. Right, the made to measure. Sorry, I was thinking about patterns because I didn't do the back patterns for the Oxford bags, but I'll do that at the end. So I found this a little bit disappointing. They had to make they were challenged to make a Dior new look style garment for a lady. It was all a bit disappointing. I was expecting some dramatic silhouettes and some fantastic tailoring. And we got it a little bit, but I think some of them missed the brief a bit. So Farie, she had a bright scarlet and pink self-patterned dress, which the collar I think was quite Dior-esque, but that was about as far as it went. She said she had problems with her fabric. She'd ordered a satin fabric and she was expecting a fairly stable satin fabric, and she got quite a floppy, flimsy one. So when she sewed it, the seams over the bust were all puckered. I mean, you have to be really, those are curved, those princess line seams are curved. You have to really ease the fabric into those, and then you have to clip those curves and press really, really carefully to make sure it is a nice smooth line. She also made it a bit small, and they had to cut the box pleat at the bottom to get it onto the model. Her model is quite curvy, and I think it is a bit more difficult to make things for a curvy model than it is for a skinny mini model, for example. Right, Rebecca's, they didn't like her fabric choice from the outset. I thought it had a 1940s feel to it, but it wasn't couture, it wasn't Dior. So I think what she did was quite sweet, but it wasn't really Dior-esque. There was some quite clever sewing in her. She faced the blouse in the contrast fabric, and that was all really neatly done, but her finishing was a little bit scruffy, so her buttons were a bit misaligned. But it was a good fit on the model. Raph, he cleverly took like an old design, an old pattern, and made it more modern by using more modern fabrics. So he used a scuba, which is like a it's like a very, very lightweight wetsuit material, I guess, or a heavyweight jersey. And he used a lightweight nylon ripstop for the blouse, which is similar to what they'd sewn with the parachutes. So he did it in black and white. It was mostly white with the black contrast belt. It looked pretty stunning, and it did create that lovely silhouette. He had a few problems sewing the blouse because the fabric was so fine, and I think one of the sleeves was a bit wonky donk. But overall, pretty good job, and the overall effect was pretty good. And then Serena, she did the tailored jacket in red with the peplum, which is the little thing that sticks out from the waist, and then slim fit cigar trousers. The jacket was lovely. There was lots of really nice details in the finishing. She curved all the collars, which is a really good idea because that was quite bulky fabric and you would never have got a point. Also, it's more Dior-esque, I think, to have the curves rather than the points. But there were other details, like the sleeves were finished to the same length as the coat. So when you're standing, you get this perfect silhouette. And she'd done covered buttons as well. The trousers, however, were too big for her model, and she quickly unpicked them towards the end and redid the darts. But they did bag a bit at the front. I thought they bagged out a little bit. Esme said what she did had worked. I don't quite get why that worked for Serena, but it didn't work for Rebecca with the fly guard. Anyway, I have to let it go. So yeah, I thought it was a little bit of a rush job and a hack job at the end for Serena to try and get those trousers to fit. Anyway, there we go. I don't want to take away from the good tailoring that she did on the jacket though. That was good, and it was a worthy winner. So that's my opinion. May not be yours. Tell me what you think. Right, trousers wise, for patterns. So we're looking at McCalls, obviously. So 7, 8, 7, 9. I couldn't find any men's trouser patterns in the McCalls range. They seem to have got rid of all the men's patterns. These are quite a classic. They've got a couple of pleats. They've got a similar waistband. It's just got a bit of a longer tab over there, and you can do it at 2 lengths. This one is similar, but it has a more fitted, it has a wider, deeper waistband. And then the pleats, and then this is similar to the first one again, sort of more of a cargo style pant. Yeah, oh my god, 7907, that one, and the previous one was 8168. Right, Dior-esque style patterns. I've just pulled out a load of sort of 1940s feel patterns. Couldn't really find anything that was particularly like what any of them did, but there was probably a bit of pattern hacking going on. So McCall 7599, lovely circular skirt. I think this came up last week as well for the Dirty Dancing dress, but this is a lovely vintage feel about it, or you can bring it up to date with more modern fabric, so take your pick. This is a bit 1940s housewife, I think, but 7086, but it's got this skirt is a really full skirt, got loads of gathers in it, so you can create that silhouette. Similarly with this one, it has quite a full skirt. Well, actually no, this is like a bustle that is tied on. It's a straight shift dress underneath, but that's what creates a silhouette. That is 7897. Right, 7952 is a little summery dress. You make it halter neck and a crossover straps at the back. 7433, more sort of 1940s housewife feel, but get that vibe. It's a bit more dressy. 7719. I thought this one down the bottom corner could create quite a good silhouette. There's a couple of jackets now with a bit of a peplum on it. So peplum is the bit that sort of comes from the waist, this little skirt bit on the waist. So 7513. This is a longer style coat, but I thought it was quite an interesting design. 7879. Oh, this is a dress, but it's got the peplum, which is why I picked it out. 7047. And then a few little blouses. So this one I thought was quite like the top of Rebecca's, especially the one shown on the model. This one, 7978. It's quite a cute little pattern. It's got a bodice panel and then separate shoulder pieces, and it's got some lovely gathers at the back. That would be a really lovely little shape actually. 7900 and 8094, and then cigarette trousers wise, like Serena, 6930. I've got these cigarette style trousers. They are just flat at the front. I think Rebecca's had a couple of pleats, but that may have been where she tried to take them in. And then I thought this pattern was quite cute as well. 7937. Got quite a cute little top and trousers there. So that's it for this week. Final next week. So Raph, Serena and Rebecca. I think the judges have a favourite, or a couple of favourites, but let's just see who pulls it out the bag on the day. All right, see you next week. Bye.